All right, teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, at this point, you know what goes down when you hit the play button. You did it, so you know whatever the challenge is, whatever the obstacle is, whatever the thing is that may be getting in your way, you may feel like it's getting in your way. We are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. That is what the premise and the principle that this show has been delivering on from day one. Today, I have Miss Susan Leahy, Miss
Ole.
Susan Leahy, who is about to not only educate you all, but also educate myself in it's the seven laws of the seven laws.
Seven fundamental motions.
Yeah, the
Yes.
seven fundamental motions, and I gotta tell you, you guys know, for you regular consumers, you guys know I do my research when it comes to people that come on the show. I don't just bring on anybody that I don't really dive into their videos. And I was listening to her all since yesterday, last night actually, and I was really excited because there's a way in which she can help you as business owners really facilitate the
Mhm.
types of ways in which you utilize your time, the types of ways in which you run your organization every single day, and all of that stuff needs to be taken into consideration when you're really trying to grow and build a business. So, Susan, welcome to the show.
Ah,
How are you?
I'm excited. You know what you said is kind of in my mind. You're saying you're not in it alone, and that's
Yes.
exactly what we're here to talk about because as your business grows, you're going to find yourself in more and more meetings. And whether they're formal meetings, informal meetings, it's you're not alone. You're doing it with a team. You're doing it together. And so the more that you can make sure that you're making good use of that meeting time,
Mhm.
that's where we're really spending a lot of our time, energy, and most importantly, our life.
Mhm.
So I want
Yeah.
to bring a little life back into our meetings. I want to save a little life in your meetings.
It's certainly a need now. It definitely
Yeah.
is a need now because what has happened is we have this world of technology, and what should be happening is we're all getting connected, but now what's actually happening is we're all drifting more apart because we're so attached to these things. And the
Mm,
minute there's an uncomfortable question, the minute someone makes you uncomfortable, you're so able to hide and run away
yes,
from things that
yes,
are going to
yes,
actually help you grow. So I have to
yes.
ask you now, how did you get started? What was like your background like? What was
Oh,
like and things like that?
I say
How did,
Robert's is the other
yeah,
man
go
in
ahead.
my marriage. I've been hanging around Robert for over 20 years. And so
Really?
my mother actually is the one who got me started into Robert's Rules of Order. She served on a city council in my local town back way longer than 20 years ago, but
Mhm.
I've been working professionally with Robert's 20 years, for 20 years.
Yeah,
But my
so,
mom, when she served on the city council, she was the only woman on an all male, fairly misogynistic board, I might add. It was
wow.
very contentious, very
Now,
toxic.
you said is this back in Canada, you said?
So I actually am from San Jacinto, a small little town in California, in Southern
Oh,
California.
okay.
And my mom served on this city council, and I remember watching those meetings, and I
Wow.
walked out, and I was like, "Well, Mom, when are you guys going to get work done?" Just
Hmm.
felt like we was talking in circles, and they used this thing called Robert's Rules of Order. And so, as a very bizarre mother-daughter bonding experience, when I was about 15, 16, I took a class with her at the local junior college in
Wow.
learning about Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedure. And I didn't realize how that class was going to shape and change my life.
No.
I went on in my high school to become the student body president, and then went on to become the president of my university because I could run really great meetings.
Oh,
And since then,
goodness.
I've been a part of various associations, and I've also helped coach hundreds, if not now thousands, of board members and board chairs on how
Uh-huh.
to use the fundamentals of this language, Robert's Rules of Order,
Yeah.
to save time, energy, and life.
Yeah. Man,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can't see it, but right now I'm actually getting goosebumps. We're not even, 3 months, but because I'm thinking to my 15-year-old self, and I'm thinking, I was up in the football world. I was voted captain by my teammates, and I always refer to those years as really time because you're not doing anything with a agenda. You're a kid, you're not necessarily doing anything for money, and you're just attracted to what you're attracted to. And well, first of all, we got to give shout out to mom for actually having the presence of mind to expose you to this information, especially if she's sitting on a misogynistic board and she's obviously trying to raise a young woman herself. And she's like, look, there's something I got to do. The way I take action is I teach my daughter how to, establish herself. So let's kind of stay there for a little bit. You what exactly do you pick up when you read the book, or did it start to where there's a lecturer teaching you and then you
Yeah,
read the book? Like, how did that go?
again, Robert's Rules of Order, and let me just say, is the parliamentary authority that boards use to run their meetings. So
Yeah.
not all meetings use Robert's Rules of Order.
Hmm.
Okay, but when you get into boards of directors, when you get into professional associations, that's when you're going to start seeing Robert's Rules of Order used. And so Roberts is a huge book. It's about
Yeah.
700 plus pages long.
Hmm.
It's very confusing, and I like simplicity.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you, while I can read, I'm not a reader. That's not the way that I learn. That's not my learning style. And I also like to simplify things. And so I shot my first Robert's Rules of Order training video 20 years ago, and I entitled it Robert's Rules Made Simple.
Hmm.
Because the one thing that I know is that Robert's Rules of Order is one of those leadership and team building tools that's going to follow you throughout your career, even if you're not aware of it.
Hmm.
Because current business leaders are tomorrow's business leaders. And so if you find yourself in a meeting today, likelihood is you're going to find yourself in other meetings tomorrow.
Hmm.
And many of those meetings are going to use this tool of Robert's Rules of Order. And so if you can master the fundamentals of this language, you're going to up level your ability to participate in meetings
Hmm.
as well as really supporting the board to do good work.
Right.
And let me just say, as one to kind of conclude and go back to that conversation about my mom,
Yeah.
because she really motivated me in a deeper way that I'd like to share. It wasn't just
Yes, right.
about teaching me about Robert's Rules of Order. It was also about teaching me that the work that we're doing in our meetings is important and it affects our lives. My
Hmm.
mom served on this board for 5 years and she struggled through it. She had to deal with personal attacks. There were some even put in the newspaper. It was really
Hmm.
awkward. It was difficult. And I'm not saying that that board gave my mother cancer, but it certainly didn't
Oh,
help.
oh my
You know,
God.
it
I didn't
certainly
know about
didn't
that.
help. And I really use an equation. Time equals what? And a lot of times people say money.
Right.
That's half truth. But time equals something so much more important. Time equals life.
Wow.
Time
Yeah.
equals life. And so when I walk into a meeting, I want people to know that everyone's life is important.
Right.
And if we can play the game at that level,
Hmm.
and we use the tools that we have at our discretion to really up level productivity and foster health,
Yeah.
then we're having positive impact. So this
Yeah.
isn't just about running meetings. This is about running healthy, productive, high functioning meetings.
Yeah. And well, first of all, thank you for being transparent enough to share that about your mom. And my grandmother passed away from breast cancer. I always walk around with this, and I have a definitely appreciation for anyone that's actually had to live through that. And also to your next point about meetings, it is important that we do look at it like time, life, and money, because money you can get back. Between time and life, you're not getting those back. And
No,
I can't tell you how annoyed and how much time I've actually wasted with certain people who have wasted my time in meetings, and they just have no grasp on this concept. And I've gotten to the point where I'm realizing you can't necessarily blame them because it's not taught in the school system at all.
no,
It's
no.
not taught anywhere. You have to actually go out and seek the information. So when you're talking about now, you leave high school, you go to school, and now it comes time for you to actually pick a career. What was that process like for you now that you have this information in your head with the book, and how were you able to leverage it and turn it into a business?
Yeah, so I went into management development. I have a master's in behavioral science. I love interpersonal communication and human dynamics.
Hmm.
And so I went into management development, and for years I was doing leadership training for managers within the corporate setting. And then I decided to create my first training video over 20 years
Wow.
ago.
Wow.
And I created a video called Robert's Rules Made Simple. I
Right.
was doing webinars, not webinars, they weren't out then. I was doing live trainings. And had my video that I was selling on a DVD to colleges,
Oh
universities,
man, you guys remember
corporations,
those, man? I mean,
and
kids don't know what
DVDs,
the
DVDs.
the
I was
kids was
like,
like the DV what?
yeah, I had a DVD called. And so I've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
I remember I started doing webinars before anybody was doing webinars, and I had
Mhm.
to educate people. I was like, we can do a webinar. You can bring me in via computer. I was like, I feel like I've been, even though Roberts was published back in 1876, I
Yeah.
had been pretty leading edge with respects to teaching
Right.
this content over the years. And
Right.
so I started training, and I did one group and another group and another group. And I got to the point where I needed to quit my job. And
Hmm.
I've been training boards and board chairs uh, professionally ever since.
Right.
Um, I've now up-leveled my business, and I'm working with organizations who have multiple boards that they need to train.
Hmm.
And I offer a service of actually building larger portals so
Hmm.
that people all have one customized space that they can go and receive board training for their specific organization.
Well, I'm glad you have been able to nail down your specific audience, which is something that I am always trying to teach people about
Mm.
whenever they're building a business. When you say boards, though, and can you just dive a little deeper into what you mean when you say board members? Because a lot of people hear it all the time, but to me, it kind of is a sometimes it can go in one ear and out the other
Yeah,
if it's
yeah,
not, but board members are really important, guys. Just tell you right,
yeah,
they're really important. They make a lot of decisions that are going to lead to finances of where money goes and who's going to be responsible for this. There is very important that you, especially if you're starting off a business, you got to have a dynamite board that really gets the job done and everybody gets it and everyone's on the same page. So,
yeah, yeah. And let me just say this real quickly. You may not use Robert's Rules of Order in your meetings, but if you're going to make any business decision, meaning you say yes to something or no to something, it's a
mhm.
vote. You have to determine what is your decision-making process.
Hmm.
And Robert's Rules of Order is the decision-making process that many boards have adopted to use in order to handle business decisions.
Hmm.
So Roberts is only a tool that's helping you facilitate your way through successfully. This is an agreed upon process of how we're going to make business decisions. When
Mhm.
you think about your meetings, I want you to think two things, and you can do this in formal meetings and informal meetings alike. I
Mhm.
want you to ask yourself the question when you're looking at each item that you're discussing, is it an information item? If it's an information item, it's of no consequence. I'm not saying that information is inconsequential. I'm saying it is of no consequence because you're not making an immediate decision. So quickly move through information items. All right, let's just inform you about this. I want to let you know what's going on. These are the key dates you need to know. Go, 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 go.
Right.
And you don't want to get bogged down in the weeds of trying to debate an information item because there's nothing to debate.
Yeah.
It's just information. The other side is business. And when you start handling your business, you better know what your decision-making process is.
Right.
And many boards have adopted Roberts as their parliamentary authority. And
Right.
so Roberts Rules of Order is the business making, is the framework for how boards make their business decisions. And most people will hear that as they've heard that when people are like, all those in favor say aye. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Is there any discussion regarding the motion? It's that language that boards use to make their business decisions.
Right. As you're talking, I'm actually thinking about there was maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. There was actually a previous guest. Shout out to Jerome. He started a football, actual American football league in Jamaica,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, he had a board meeting, and this was early on in the process. And one of the things that he didn't probably do the best of is figuring out what specific role each board member is going to
Yes.
have. I
Yeah.
remember being on a
Yeah.
call and, the guy, one of the people was like, all right, so until you establish that, we might as well go and hop off this call because you got to establish, okay, this person is responsible for this amount of dollars. This person is responsible for getting 20K. This person is responsible
Yep.
for maybe getting the field. This person is responsible for so can you speak a little bit on, the successful boards or maybe the boards that have not been as successful and how you're able to coach them up and make sure that they really have it together so they can achieve the maximum thing. And by the way, on that point, a lot of these people are doing this, outside of their full-time job. So they gotta
Yeah,
spend
there you
time.
go.
Yeah,
Hence
they gotta
why it
spend
should be
right.
simple. Hence
Yeah.
why it should be simple.
Right.
Hence why people don't need to become full-time
Yeah.
parliamentarians to understand what to do. This should be a tool that enhances communication, not serves as a stumbling block. And so
Mm-hmm.
the first thing that comes to my mind is that if you're putting together a board, you have to commit to create a learning environment in that board, meaning people are going to come in with various levels of experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so making sure that training becomes an integral part of how this board functions, because I find that a lot of times there's kind of a lot of ego in the boardroom for some reason. It's like we all act like we have to know what's going on, but nobody knows what's going on. And
Yep.
so
It's
we got
probably
to
part of the
check
reason they were
our ego
asked to be a part of it because the personalities, the strong
and the
personalities.
strong personality, and that's not a bad thing, but what we need to do is we need to invite that person to really focus the way they're participating so that it can support the health of the board. And so
Yep.
the first thing is this board is going to be making some business decisions on behalf of the organization, but this board has to be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to foster a healthy, productive meeting dynamic. And one of the ways to do that is to make sure that everyone understands how we're going to make business decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I've distilled it down into 7 fundamental motions. And
Yes.
so I walk everybody through, and you can do this in a variety of ways. You can have me come in via webinar and I
Mm-hmm.
do a training for everybody, or people are busy, go online, purchase a board license, and have everybody go through the online training so that at least at bare minimum, every one of your board members has reviewed the 7 fundamental motions. That when a business item is listed on the agenda, we all know that we start by making a main motion.
Mm-hmm.
More boards waste time by talking and talking and talking. And I'm sure you've heard this.
Oh
People
yeah.
are talking in a meeting, talking, talking, talking. And then somebody goes, should we make a motion? Have you ever heard that? Have you ever had that
Yeah,
situation?
I've had quite
Right?
a few of those. I
And
mean,
what Robert
in the
says is
football
that,
world, and not to cut, but and we're going to get into some of the work that you're doing in the sports world as well. But in the football world, especially talking about ownership, like semi-pro ownership,
yes,
owner
yes.
these leagues, it is hey guys, we gotta do something. I get we love the game and we're here because we want to help the game, but this is people's time being wasted
Yeah,
and
this is their life
your
being
life
wasted.
being wasted
Yes.
right there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's what, going back to that time equals life,
Mhm.
one of the questions I work with lots of board chairs, and I invite every board chair to ask the question at the end of the meeting, was this meeting a good use of our life?
Ooh, that's a great question. That's
And
a
if
great
the answer is no, you have a training opportunity, hence connecting it back into that commitment that our board is a space where
Mhm.
we're gonna be a learning environment.
Right.
Too many boards are stuck in what's called the circumstantial drift. I
Hmm.
mean, this is how we've always done it, and so we're just going to keep doing it this way. And even though we don't understand what we're doing, we're not going to question it. We're just going to because it feels like, oh, this is a box we need to check. I
Yep.
have to have board meetings now. So let's just check that box.
Box.
Your board meetings are a huge opportunity to reinforce the vision, the energy, and really the mission of your organization. They're
Exactly.
your greatest team building activity.
Exactly. Exactly. What are some of the examples of places that you worked with in the past? Because I want to make sure if anybody's listening that is looking to build a business, this specific thing that we're talking about, it can be the reason that you don't actually get started. It can be the thing that actually holds you back because there's no actual foundation. So when it comes to some of the companies or the board groups that you've been successful with, or that you've seen successful, what exactly were you able to kind of help them work through?
Well, I'm going to use a really extreme example. This isn't in the sports related field, but I was working with an organization that it was a very contentious board. And they were actually in the process of, because when you get into the higher level boards and you're a board member on that board, you are legally liable for how you're participating on that board and what you do. And this board was actually actively suing 2 of their seated board members.
Hmm.
And so imagine how contentious this training was that I walked into. So I'm using
In
a
the
very
middle of it
extreme
too, yeah, because then
example.
you walk in,
Yeah,
yeah.
they already spent a $500,000 on legal fees.
Jeez.
Okay, so there was a lot of anger in this board.
Yeah.
And so I'm using a very extreme example,
Mhm.
but going in and teaching them how to talk about building and fostering a healthy board dynamic
Mhm.
through being able to manage and deal with their business. It
Mhm.
opened up a conversation and a space where people could start putting down some of their ego.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ego in boardrooms.
Right.
And that ego is never going to serve the mission of whatever organization you're serving. And so there is a way that we have to invite people, not shame people, not guilt people. We got to invite people because people with big egos, and I love people with big egos because I got one.
Yeah.
They work well when they're invited.
Right.
Right. And so how do we create that space so that we can open up healthier a healthier dynamic? So for me, this tool, this is a building block
Right.
that can help you run better meetings. I feel like I don't want to be obtuse about what it is. I want to get really into the simplicity.
Yeah.
Robert says that when you start dealing with your business, you look at your business items. Oh, there's the next item of business is new business to vote for X, the approval of X funds for whatever event. What Robert says is that before any discussion can occur, put a motion on the floor. A motion is nothing more than a question. Hey, you guys, do you want to spend X amount of dollars on this? It's a formal way of making a business question. And what's amazing is once you have a question on the floor that we can all agree, this is the question that we want to talk about, now we can have focused discussion.
Right.
But if you get to a business item and people just start talking, there's no focus in how you're talking and you're wasting.
Well, I'm so glad you broke it down like that because you actually are taking me back to my football playing days, my college, more specifically my college football playing days. And there was a time in which, it's the middle of the season. We're at this point, we're exhausted. We're dealing with school. We're dealing with life, throughout the day and all that. And I remember Coach P kind of just making a statement because, these are coaches like you've been doing it for years and they can feel when the energy of the team out where it is. He goes, guys, look, you get on this field, it all goes away. It all goes away. And it's crazy to me to sit here and think about because as you're talking, these board members who may have egos, these people that may not like each other, you walk into a room that has to go away.
Yes.
Question and the business on the table. We just need to figure out. I don't care. I might be suing you for a couple. I don't know what it is, but at the end of the day, this question and this business needs to be handled now. And let's figure out how we can work together to build this thing. And
I love it as one, right? As one. Like
Yeah.
we're going to use your name here because
That's
you
why
can put it all out there and understand that the board is really of service. And when we can be a high functioning board, and a high functioning board is not a board that agrees with one another.
Right.
Okay, let's just say that we have forgotten in this day and age how to be with people and have different opinions.
Yeah.
I can disagree with you, but still respect you.
That's what it is.
I can disagree with you, and then I could still let you influence me, and I could change my mind.
Yes.
Like that's high functioning. High functioning is civil discourse.
Right.
High functioning is being able to influence as well as be influenced. And so if our boards are not a learning environment, then they're going to be a space where a whole lot of ego is going to get in the way. And so we have to make this conversation about what is going to help us foster the most healthy, productive board dynamic. We have to put that on the table, and it has to be a priority. And I will tell you, one of the stumbling blocks that keeps boards from being efficient is that board members do not have a understanding of the fundamentals of how we're going to make business decisions.
Exactly.
And that's it. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, to set us up for success, we're going to learn these 7 motions. I was listening to Aswan's podcast. There was this really interesting girl who was really passionate about this thing, parliamentary procedure. And I want us all to learn just these things. And it will up-level the way they're able to communicate and make decisions.
Yeah, there's actually another book too I got to recommend to the listeners. It's called Competitive Leadership by Brian Billick. He used to be the coach of Baltimore Ravens. And I remember him saying when he hired his offensive coordinator, he told him, look, you and I don't disagree. All right. We either argue to the point in which we see each other's side or just keep going at it until I see your side, you see my side, but we never disagree in front of the men, in front of the professional players that we're coaching. And we are able to, and obviously, again, a Super Bowl later, that's what happens. And again, these are the same things. you're going to disagree with people. That is welcome. We want that.
Yeah,
We never
yeah,
disagree to the point where we're not arguing it out in a respectful way, obviously. But
that's
when you
right.
see their point, I see your point, and let's get something done. But you
Yeah,
never want to disagree and let it go and just go on to the next day and go on to the next day because
yeah, don't let it
stuff
go.
festers. It festers, it
I
festers.
think you're giving marriage advice too.
Yeah, but that's what I was saying. I mean, and what you
It is.
meant listening to previous shows, there was a girl I had on Monday. Shout out to Jenny, and she had asked me before the show if she wanted to talk relationships, talk business, or talk
Yeah,
like just,
because you're talking about it
I'm like,
all. That's
that's what
right.
I told her. I said it's probably gonna be the same thing with me
That's
because
right. There's only one conversation going on. There's only
I
one
don't
conversation going
I
on.
don't
Like,
see at all the difference in terms of
no,
it's going to be the same exact principles
yeah,
whether you get
yeah.
married. It doesn't
Yeah.
really matter.
Well,
So
it's funny because I tease about that in my trainings. I said, once you understand Robert's Rules of Order
yeah.
formally, you can apply it informally anywhere. And my husband, who he does all of my training videos, he's an editor, director. I
Oh.
married very well for this for this world. And
No,
he
he's the like for the videos, he's the
for all
trainer.
my videos, he does all
Oh,
my
okay.
editing, is all the, so he knows all of my content, but
Oh,
he's
okay,
never
good.
sat in a meeting. But we use Roberts in our marriage. One day he walked over to me or I walked over to him and I was very excited because we got businesses and babies together. And I
There
started
you
telling
go.
him about something. And he said to me, I can't second this right now. Okay. Now, a second signifies
Hmm.
that somebody finds this topic worthy to discuss.
Right, right,
It
right.
doesn't mean you agree, doesn't mean you disagree. It just means, hey, I'm going to put the motion, the question in front of you. I move this,
Hmm.
and the chair will say, is there a second? And the second signifies, yeah, I think I'm interested in hearing more. And
Hmm.
in this very personal situation, my husband said to me, no, 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 I can't second this right now.
Hmm.
Right. And so what happens is the motion, when it doesn't receive a second, it just dies due to a lack of a second. And you move on to the next item of business. It means it's got to find, it's worthy to talk about. And what's so great about it is that my husband later on in the day, he walked back over to me and he wasn't being disrespectful when he didn't second it then. He was saying, I don't have the bandwidth, I don't have the focus, I don't have the ability to engage in this right now. And I respect you more than just to S and N and smile and nod and be like, when is she going to shut up? Right? He wanted to authentically be there. And so he came back a little while later and he said to me, he goes, I'm ready to second that conversation now.
Man, that's
And it was like,
yeah, how do you? But all right, so now because I teach at this school named the Center for Creative Education, and we're a startup school, and it's called the Foundation School, and there's layers to it. There's myself, we're on the education side. There's the art integrated teachers, but then there's a board. There's an actual board member, and there's so many clashes, Susan. Like every single day, there'll be a clash because you'll see board members walking around that we're trying to get donors that we're trying to get money from, and the teachers are trying to teach and the teachers don't like the fact that you got donors kind of using the kids as a way. So I
like,
understand all sides because I've been in business with a lot of this. So how would you recommend that the board members are able to communicate with some of the people that are actually doing the work? What do you recommend in terms of so it doesn't become so contentious, even though you may not be on the board, but you may be actually putting out and doing the business and doing the job that the board is creating?
and what I would say is that if the board can, and I know I keep harping on this concept, but if the board can be a board where they are portraying and embodying the fact that they are a learning environment in and of themselves,
Hmm.
all of a sudden it makes it easier for people to come to them. And
Uh,
it's easier for them to receive
that's
from. And right now, there's such a division in us versus them.
mhm,
It's the faculty versus the board,
exactly.
and
I mean,
we
you
we
nailed
have
it. It's
created
exactly the
a
way it feels
culture.
sometimes.
That's what, and we've created a culture where that is acceptable.
Right.
And we need to start talking about how that culture is impacting everybody's life.
Hmm.
And we need to figure out through communication and through commitment how we are going to start really opening up the lines of being of service. Because I said this, if you are on a dysfunctional board, you are in a dysfunctional organization.
Yep. Period.
And some of my most contentious boards, and it breaks my heart, are
Yeah.
homeowners associations, are condo boards.
Yeah. Hmm.
So contentious.
Hmm.
And I would say boards don't need to learn how to be dysfunctional. They got that. Just
Hmm.
like families don't need to learn how to be dysfunctional. They
Right.
got that. But
Right.
this idea of being high functioning, this idea of really being able to do what you just described, engage in differences of opinion and stay. That's one of the models I talk about. In my master's program, they said, the highest form of honoring another human being is
Hmm.
to stay with them through the conflict.
Right.
And stay stands for stop thinking it's about you.
Yeah, that's a
And the
great.
reason we leave is because
Huh?
we have the inability to stay and listen to the different opinion to
Mhm.
try to find a new possibility. You really want your mind blown now? Let's do this. You ready? You ready to
Yes,
go?
I'm ready to roll.
Here we go. Let's have fun. This is what. So most people are living in example, right? I want to know, have I seen it done before? Has this happened before? But let's talk about what if you are a board? What if you are a relationship for possibility?
Yeah.
Right? Possibility. And
Hmm.
and Jim Selman, who's my father-in-law, who does he's actually been coined for the individual who's brought coaching into the corporate world,
Uh-huh.
right? So he's the one who started this kind of whole coaching piece. But he told me one day his definition of possibility is if you could prove a possibility, it would be an example.
Wow.
So so you are living outside of example.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, man, there's a lot, there's a whole lot there because we are actually, and we are actually recording this, by the way, during a huge election season. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask
Yes.
who you're voting for or anything like that. But one of the things that you just brought up was the fact that most people who are contentious are homeowners association. And it got me thinking about the fact that that's an industry that is just about so much money. Realtors or whatever they have their money, they have their own deals. Do you attribute the kind of the relationship with money and having built a cohesive board? How do you see that relationship kind of causing any conflicts when it comes to, building something solid and then being in a world where it's just about how much money something's going to be? Like here, we're in education, everybody wants to kind of see the kids reading on grade level. We want the teachers to be happy because obviously we're doing very important work with the kids and the families. In
Yeah.
sports, it's like an entertainment thing. But when you talk about somebody's home, now we're talking about somebody's money and their living situation. And the way you get in that home is pretty much kind of just a money game and where you could
Yeah.
find the best deal.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that when it comes closer to home, people get a little bit more. I mean, there's contentious board everywhere. I always say that that's like job security for me.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I go back to is I think it's so sad that nobody's having this conversation about the impact of these dysfunctional boards. It's almost become like, oh yeah, that's just normal. And I think that that's sad
It is.
because
It is.
your life is important.
Yeah.
My life is important. The work that they're doing on this board, it's important. And if we can keep speaking into that
Mhm.
and we keep reminding one another of the value of all of the lives of everyone around the room, we need to bring more humanity back into the boardroom. We
Yeah.
need to bring more life back into the boardroom. We
Right.
need to connect people deeper into that, and you can only do that when it's a learning environment. But board meetings, unfortunately, have created this space where sometimes I just said there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of circumstantial drift, and so we don't take time to have these conversations, and they don't have to take that much time. So I'll share with you one of the concepts that I use in order to talk to boards about. So I'm going to go in my brain. When I think of a meeting, there's two things that my brain are playing with. A really great meeting, you understand the process. And the process is Robert's Rules of Order. How are you going to make business decisions?
Yes.
Okay, the other side of that, the process is the people. How do you manage and acknowledge and take care of the people? So a great meeting does those two things. It balances the people and the process. And the
Hmm.
process is actually there for the people.
Yes.
And so I'm going to give you a high five real quickly. Let's give me an air high five. Whoosh, right?
Yes.
Here's a high
I do
five.
have workshops.
Okay. Aren't they fun? These high fives are fun.
They're
So
great.
what I have boards do is I have them reach out, give a high five, air high five,
Yeah.
and then this is how you up level the health of your board. It's this simple. You ask everybody, what do you want to think or feel as a result of the time and energy and life you're spending in this room? I want 5 words, just 5 words.
Yeah.
So as I'm asking you that, what would you say would be up there for you? You want to think or feel what?
Productive, needs to be
Yep.
productive, needs to be efficient, needs to be informative, uh,
Okay.
to be, well, say fun.
There you go.
To be it needs to just be really clear, like the clarity.
Informative. There's clarity. Okay, so let's just play with this, right? So we just came up with it. So our high five context, and this is what I want to invite boards to do. It's this simple.
Mhm.
Because that energy is surrounding your board always. There's always a context that your board is living into. What is it? Let's define it. I want everyone, as a result of the time, energy, and life, to walk out of this meeting feeling productive, effective, fun, clear, and informed.
Mhm.
Do you want to be in that meeting? Yeah,
Yes.
I want to be in that
And
meeting.
especially,
So
and this is something that starts off with that. Yeah.
and you start your meeting with the high five context.
Yeah.
You start your meeting with a high five. I want to let everyone know, as your board chair, it's my commitment to create an environment where everyone in this room has this experience. You're all going to feel, and you're going to walk out knowing that this was an effective meeting. It was a productive meeting. Everyone here is going to feel informed. You're going to have some fun, and you're going to walk out with some clarity. So
Yes.
as I call the meeting to order, and then you move on to the meeting, and then the bad meeting behavior starts. Someone's talking out of turn, someone's walking away. You go back to the high five context.
Mhm.
And then you make what's called an intervention. This is all inside my chair meeting with confidence online training that you
Mhm.
can get at Robert's Rules Made Simple, right?
Yes.
Because I work with lots of board chairs. And so now you have a way of dealing with bad meeting behavior. Hey, John, I just want to remind you that it's my commitment to create a productive meeting environment. And so I need to make sure that we're not having side conversations.
Yeah.
Right? And nobody's going to argue with you like, no, I don't want it to be productive. But
Yeah.
what happens is board chairs many times, they don't know how to make that intervention related to the context, to the energy, to what is a healthy board dynamic. And
Yeah.
so I've really simplified not only Robert's Rules of Order, but I've really simplified how we can communicate about the people side
Mhm.
meetings. This can be simple. It doesn't have to take a lot of time, but if you don't create a little bit of space, you're going to waste a whole lot of life.
Right. I mean, the thing is, as you're done thinking of the guy who was suing the other guy, what you're describing, they have to give a high five and,
Oh
you
yeah, yeah,
know,
that was,
this
and you know what?
is,
It was really interesting
yeah.
because it was, but what we found in that tension, because I do work with boards and do interventions for boards, obviously,
Yeah.
is what we did is in the high five and defining it, we started to humanize.
Uh-huh.
And the truth is, he doesn't want to waste life. She doesn't want to waste life.
Oh, you're
But
in
there's
the
this
meeting, right?
acknowledgement we're wasting a whole lot of life. And
Mhm.
what was exciting about that is after a full day of training, they went back into their next meeting. That board unanimously voted to drop the lawsuit.
Yep. And it's right off jump. I mean, I think you nailed it with the perfect word, humanize them, where it
Yes.
something about it, and I've experienced this a lot, even when you're playing on a team, regardless of it, when you actually look at a person and what they go through, just a simple handshake, a high five, a smile, and just humanize the
Yeah.
person. Now you realize, look, it is not just me in this. I'm not the only one trying to get paid. Anybody,
Yeah.
you're not the only one
Everybody.
paying bills.
And I don't even have to like you. I
Yeah.
don't even have to like you, but I can humanize you.
Exactly, and that to me,
I can acknowledge that you also are having a human experience. You
hmm
might be having a little bit of a different human experience. I don't agree with all your experiences, but I can still hold that level of respect, right? And so it's funny for me, what I find is that so many times Roberts is kind of a diagnosing problem. People reach out to me and they're like, my board needs Roberts Rules of Order training. And then it's like, and right.
Right.
They need to understand both of those, the people and the process side of meetings. And
Yes.
when you do that, then all of a sudden your chair is empowered, and your chair who's empowered then empowers their board members,
Mm.
and you have just a better experience.
Yeah, it's like that throw a rock in the ocean, just start to see that ripple effect that
The
that ripple
ripple, see the
effect.
ripple. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do want to be very respectful of your time. Can you just talk a little bit about what's next? What do you see coming down the pipeline? What can people expect in the future and all that good stuff?
You know what? I'm super excited. Actually, I'm working with the city of Los Angeles right now, and I'm in the process of translating my Roberts Rules Made Simple into Spanish.
Right.
And so
Now, is this just a book? Is it a book that people can
my
get?
Roberts Rules Made Simple is an online training that you can purchase it individually
Mhm.
at robertsrulesmadesimple.com. Or if you serve on a board, you can get what's called a board license, and that gives everyone on your board access to this online training for 12 months. And
Okay.
what's great about that is, let's say you have a board of 7 people. The small board license is for 11 people. And what inevitably happens is you have turnover. So you have a space for when new board members come, you still have 3 more seats. you can get those new board members up to speed.
And it's gonna be in
So,
Espanol now?
yeah, en
All
español.
right.
Muy bien.
Hey, man, I'm down here in South Florida, so that should
That's it.
definitely
Yeah.
be
So I'm
helpful.
super excited. So if you are part of an organization that is, and if if there's other, I mean, with AI technology now, we can do any language is available, but we are starting with Spanish and then expanding it into other languages as well.
And how can people get in touch with you if they want to hear more?
Okay, you can visit my YouTube channel if you're intrigued and you want to see some free content. You can find me at Robert's Rules Made Simple, Susan Leahy, Leahy. I'm there on my YouTube channel, or always reach out to me via my website, Roberts with an S, Rules with an S, Roberts Rules, madesimple.com. I'm available to come in and do webinar-based training, live training, coaching for board chairs. And like I said, I love working with organizations who need to train multiple boards. We've got some great training solutions that we're currently doing within the state of Montana. We're working with Lieutenant Governor's office. We're training 160 of Montana's boards. We work in a variety of associations. So would love to work with larger organizations as well.
Yes, and I'll include that in the show notes as well. So, Susan, the final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are 15 years old, where most teenage girls are probably only thinking about boys and all that kind of stuff. But you're the 15-year-old version of you. You just took a Robert's Laws class. You're like, mind is blown. You and your mom are kind of having that kind of pretend that teenage version of you has come into the Zoom room. Give that young lady some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Oh, I would say, Susan, you are enough.
Yes.
I want you to let yourself play and have fun and put yourself in front.
Hmm.
You're, you need to put yourself in front.
Yes, ma'am. And I have absolutely nothing to add to that. We could officially drop the mic with that. Fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.